The movie opens up with Miso, a middle-aged woman arriving at an art gallery where a striking portrait of her is on display. An employee at the gallery approaches her, explaining that they discovered her through the painting's artist. The employee also reveals that Miso's best friend, Ha-eun, used to write a blog regularly. However, Miso, who appears to be harboring unresolved issues, abruptly leaves the gallery, leaving the employee disappointed. As she heads towards the elevator, she unexpectedly encounters Jin-woo, Ha-eun's ex-boyfriend. Curiosity getting the better of him, Jin-woo inquires about Ha-eun's whereabouts and their current relationship. However, Miso says nothing and simply enters the elevator. Once back at her house, she begins searching for Ha-eun's blogs online and delves deep into their contents. Through the blog, Miso reminisces about their journey as friends, from their initial meeting to all the happy times they once shared. The scene transitions to the past, specifically 1998, when both girls are younger and meet for the first time. Miso, having recently transferred schools, is introduced to the class by the teacher. Uninterested in academics and displaying a rebellious attitude, she flees from the classroom when the teacher asks her to take a seat. Miso's concerned mother, Lee, follows her outside, but fails to persuade her to return. After school, Ha-eun notices that Miso has left her school bag behind and decides to return it to her. Eventually, she spots her standing at the edge of a cliff. Ha-eun musters up some courage and joins Miso there. And it is during this moment that the foundation of their friendship takes root. Later, Ha-eun invites Miso back to her house and introduces her to their family cat. As they enjoy themselves, Miso loses track of time, prompting her worried mother, Lee, to arrive at Ha-eun's house. She scolds her badly and demands that she return home at once. From their conversation, it becomes evident that Miso's father is absent from their lives, and she yearns to fulfill her dream of moving to Seoul with her mother. The following day, Miso returns to Ha-eun's house to pass the time. As they play together, Ha-eun unveils her talent for art by drawing a perfect image of a cat. Miso, who never really had any passion for anything, is greatly impressed. Days later, Lee has to travel to Seoul for urgent work, so Miso is left in Ha-eun's care. The latter's family embraces her as one of their own, providing a nurturing environment during her mother's absence. As the years pass, both girls enter high school, with Miso pursuing her passion for art at the academy, while Ha-eun follows her father's wishes by studying education to become a teacher. Despite their diverging paths, their bond remains unbreakable and they continue to meet regularly, escaping their respective classes. In the next scene, Miso arrives on her scooter to pick up Ha-eun, and the two friends head to a nearby town, specifically to a jewelry shop. While they explore the shop, Miso suggests that Ha-eun should take the bold step and get her ears pierced, since her birthday is the following day. Ha-eun agrees, and the shopkeeper pierces her ear. However, amidst their playfulness, Miso accidentally breaks a couple of items, causing the shopkeeper to chase them away. In the evening, Miso joins Ha-eun's family for dinner and expresses her desire to have Ha-eun hang out at her apartment for the night. The latter's mother consents, and later we see the girls in Miso's apartment engaging in heartfelt conversations about their lives. During their conversation, Miso shares her unconventional belief that it's better to die at a young age rather than face life's hardships. Hearing this, Ha-eun gets angry and scolds her friend, warning her not to think or speak of such things again. The following morning, Miso surprises Ha-eun by taking her to an abandoned house as a birthday treat. She presents her with a pair of earrings as a gift, but unfortunately, only one of Ha-eun's ears is pierced. So, she decides to wear one earring and requests Miso keep the other one. In the midst of their conversation, Ha-eun confides in Miso about her newfound crush, Jin-woo, a student from another school whom she noticed during a recent basketball match. Surprisingly, the next day, Miso goes to Jin-woo's school and confronts him. Although they don't know each other, she forcefully urges him to accept her friend's proposal and warns him against breaking Ha-eun's heart. The boy agrees in passing. The scene then shifts to a bustling dining hall, where students from both schools are preparing for a dinner event. Jin-woo is present, and Ha-eun can be seen stealing glances at him. The students decide to play an engaging name game, and when it's Ha-eun's turn, she selects Jin-woo's name. It is at this point that their friendship truly begins. Ha-eun asks Jin-woo if she can draw his portrait, and he gladly agrees. So, with all her artistic talent, she creates a beautiful portrait of Jin-woo. Returning to the present, Miso is deeply moved as she reads Ha-eun's blogs with tears in her eyes. The blog's timeline progresses to 2004, when Ha-eun brings Jin-woo to Miso's workplace, a nightclub. Our protagonist desperately tries to hide her face from Jin-woo, but fails. Following this, Miso, Ha-eun, and Jin-woo spend time together enjoying their vacation. One day, the trio decides to explore a cave and embark on a hiking adventure. Ha-eun grows tired along the way and takes a break. Miso, however, continues the journey alone through the forest. Concerned for her friend, Ha-eun asks Jin-woo to follow Miso and take care of her. While on her way, Miso turns back, and Ha-eun captures a breathtaking picture of her. This is the picture portrait that we saw at the beginning of the movie, hanging at the art gallery. Later, deep inside the cave, Miso's attention is drawn to a locket around Jinwoo's neck. Intrigued, she inquires about its significance. Jinwoo reveals that the locket was a gift from his grandmother, believed to protect him from illness, and he has cherished it since childhood. In a surprising turn of events, their closeness intensifies, and they share a passionate kiss. In the subsequent scene, the trio returns home from their vacation, and an unspoken tension lingers among them. There is a real sense of unease and uncertainty in the air. The following day, Miso makes preparations to leave for her long-awaited destination, Seoul, with her new boyfriend, Kim. Ha-eun desperately tries to convince her to stay, as Miso is her only childhood friend, but her pleas fall on deaf ears. Later, as Ha-eun waves goodbye, she notices Jinwoo's locket around Miso's neck, stirring a flicker of suspicion within her. She yearns to ask Miso about the locket's origin, but realizes it's too late. In the next scene, Miso arrives in Seoul, thrilled to pursue her dreams. She rents a beautiful apartment and begins working at the same bar as Kim. However, somewhere along the line, she loses her mobile phone. Unable to use her phone to contact Ha-eun, she resorts to sending a letter describing her situation and sharing that she's working and taking painting classes. Miso paints a picture of a content and fulfilling life in Seoul, although the reality is far from it. In response, Ha-eun writes back, mentioning her admission to a university, but admitting that her life feels monotonous and unfulfilling. She laments following her father's dreams instead of her own. One night while roaming around work, Miso catches Kim getting intimate with another girl. Consumed by anger and betrayal, she storms out of the bar, leaving her job behind. Miso's circumstances deteriorate and she takes on various odd jobs to survive in Seoul. Her life becomes a constant struggle, but she conceals her hardships from Ha-eun, continuing to paint a picture of happiness. She fabricates stories of traveling the world and fulfilling her dreams, even though the reality is harsh and lonely. Ha-eun reads the letters, finding solace in her friend's apparent success and wishing her well. Several months later, Jinwoo approaches Ha-eun, sharing his plans to continue his studies in Seoul. Ha-eun is saddened by the news, but realizes there's nothing she can do to prevent his departure. Now she finds herself alone in their small town. Her only friend left long ago, and now her boyfriend is also leaving for Seoul. Meanwhile, Miso's life takes a turn for the worse when her mother passes away, leaving her to face the funeral alone. Overwhelmed by frustration and despair, she returns to their old town and heads straight to Ha-eun's place. The latter is over the moon to finally have her friend back. However, Miso continues to spin tales of her flourishing life in Seoul, fabricating stories of exotic travels and worldly experiences. She even presents Ha-eun with postcards from various places she claims to have visited. Ha-eun has started having doubts about the stories, but nonetheless, she chooses not to say anything at the moment. Later, the two friends enjoy a pleasant evening outside and check into a hotel. Once in their room, Miso asks Ha-eun to fetch a sanitary pad from her bag. However, to her surprise, she discovers Jinwoo's locket inside. Miso is embarrassed by the discovery, and she doesn't speak a word. Later that night, they visit a luxurious cafe for dinner. However, upon realizing the expensive prices, Ha-eun suggests leaving. Unwilling to back down, Miso devises a plan to collect money for their meal. She approaches a table occupied by wealthy individuals and offers to mix drinks in exchange for a bottle of wine. To her astonishment, the businessman accepts her proposition. However, Ha-eun disapproves of Miso's actions and abruptly leaves the cafe. She then retrieves her belongings from the hotel room and departs, despite Miso's futile attempts to stop her. The movie fast-forwards several years and Miso has finally found stability working for a resale company. Jinwoo pays her a visit and inquires about Ha-eun. Surprisingly, Miso admits to losing contact with her and shares her own success story. She reveals her romantic involvement with her boss and her plans to relocate to Canada and expand their business. Unfortunately, Miso's contentment is shattered when she notices a gathering of people and an ambulance near her office building. Investigating the commotion, she learns that her boss has taken his own life after falling victim to fraudulent investments. Devastated by the tragedy, Jinwoo supports Miso and brings her to his apartment for solace. In the next scene, Miso attempts to contact Jinwoo but fails to reach him. Worried, she visits his apartment and finds him with Ha-eun. Overwhelmed with emotion, Ha-eun rushes to embrace Miso, expressing her remorse. She then invites her inside and helps her to the bathroom. It is here that Ha-eun notices her boyfriend's locket around Miso's neck and questions how she obtained it. Our protagonist girl cleverly replies that she requested the locket from Jinwoo as a symbol of good luck, hoping to protect herself from the prospect of untimely death. One day, Jinwoo proposes to Ha-eun and she readily accepts. The couple begins spending time together and becomes very close, but on their wedding day, Ha-eun reflects on her life. After a lot of thinking, she gets cold feet and decides to call off the marriage. Before departing for Seoul, she visits her mother and shares her decision. Her mother advises her to live her life on her own terms and embrace joy to the fullest. Ha-eun arrives in Seoul and coincidentally rents the same apartment that Miso once occupied. After she explores the room, she starts painting a beautiful portrait of her best friend, Miso. Returning to the present, Jinwoo visits Miso and inquires about Ha-eun. Miso reveals that she is no longer in contact with her. She also mentions that she now has a daughter. It is revealed that during Ha-eun's visit to Seoul, she was pregnant and had already decided to raise the child on her own. Miso supported her friend's decision and committed to helping her. The daughter she now cares for is Ha-eun's, and since her birth, she has not seen her biological mother. This is because Ha-eun tragically lost a significant amount of blood during childbirth and succumbed to her injuries. In the final scene, Miso visits Ha-eun's mother and shares the painful truth about her daughter's passing. Overwhelmed with emotion, the woman urges Miso to visit Ha-eun's apartment in Seoul and retrieve her belongings. In the apartment, Miso discovers the incomplete portrait Ha-eun had started, causing her to break down in tears. So, determined to honor her friend's memory, Miso decides to finish the portrait. The movie concludes with Miso attending an art gallery accompanied by Ha-eun's daughter. There, she reveals that all the portraits credited to Ha-eun were actually created by her, and the blog's entries under Ha-eun's name were also written by Miso in an effort to keep her friend's memory alive.